So this whole dream of redemption and God calling us to Jasper really started in a previous ministry I was in, where I was a youth minister and associate minister. And it was a great church, but it was not a church where people really wanted to go outside the box and reach people who weren't yet there. I just felt like I wanted to go to a church like that, and I asked God to send me a church like that. And He, no doors were opening up, and I just felt like He said, not verbally, just in my conscience, you need to go start one. I asked some friends to pray about it, some ministry friends, some elders, and they all came back and said, we think this is a great idea. I don't think any of us thought maybe I was the person to do it at that time, because I had no experience in starting a new church, no real idea what I was doing.
Years ago, right before the Christian Church of Jasper was started, Darrell Land was doing a lot of substitute teaching at Springs Valley, where I teach now and back then as well. And, he and I got the opportunity to talk a lot about what is it that a church should be, and he started discussing starting a church in Jasper, and I said, yeah, I would be very interested in doing that. So I told him, I said, give me a couple months to let my current church find another Sunday school teacher to replace me, and I'll come down and check it out. So I did that and went to that first service down there, and never stopped.
Me and my wife was looking for a church. Her son was a good friend of Darrell, and he called his mother, told her that Darrell's going to start a Christian church in Jasper.
November of 2000, we came from Nashville, Tennessee, and we immediately started looking for a church to go to. Looked at several places, and then we landed at a church that was advertised in the newspaper as Christian Church of Jasper, a non-denominational church.
I saw in the paper an ad for CCJ at the time, so we decided to give it a try.
I've known Darrell since he was born. And then when he started the church here, and then my mom was attending, so we decided, well, let's go see, and the rest is history. We just kept going.
I had a cousin and one of my very best friends that were married. The same two said, hey, you guys need to come to this new church.
And so we started. We started in the Days Inn conference room on May 21st of 2000. I think there was probably 30-something total people, counting the support from my home church, from the church I was recently at as well, along with 12 people who came to make this their church home, or at least to check it out and see if it was going to be their church home. It was a terrible service in terms of flow and walking through things. And we started, we were in the Days Inn for a little while. And then we moved to the theater.
It was interesting because before time was up, they were making popcorn and running the vacuum, and so it was an interesting situation.
I mean, besides it being in a theater, which was just odd, but I mean, the music was terrible, but the preaching was good.
In fact, we pulled out of the parking lot, and Shannon, I remember her saying, let's just keep going there. And I said something to the effect of, not so much.
Yeah, he was like, no.
Not so much.
So I remember parking there, walking in, and that overwhelming smell of popcorn as you walked into the theater, and then you start going down to where they were having service, your feet kind of sticking to the floor a little bit from the Coke service, and thinking, wow, that's going to be a little bit different.
We had a lot of room there at the theater, but we thought it was time to move out of there, because a lot of people didn't want to be in a church in the theater.
And we started really praying hard about finding a new location. Someone pointed out somehow or another this warehouse on Cathy Lane, just literally just a warehouse with chipboard walls and concrete floors, and a freezer that was left over from when it was the vending company.
The freezer at Cathy Lane?
A really stinky freezer in the corner.
A freezer that stunk worse. Lots of sour milk smell.
There was a tremendous amount of echo in that building.
As soon as I walked in, I knew this is where the next step was going to be.
And the thing that I really remember more than anything that stood out to me was Daryl being at the door, seeing everybody out the door after service. I just thought that was really neat.
We were still anywhere from 30 to 50 people most Sundays.
You knew everybody. So you got to know everybody, you learned about people's lives, and you really, you did feel like a small family at the time. We struggled for a long time to reach 100 people in attendance, and when we got to that 100, that was quite a feat, just in our area.
It was like it exploded, and before you know it, we were in 2 services in this old Kathy Lane warehouse.
It's a testament to God doing what God wants to do, because there's no reason any of that should have attracted anybody to come to church here. But it was in the right place at the right time. And I think people were hungry for something real and something authentic, and we were nothing if not authentic. It was very real.
It became very evident soon that we were going to be outgrowing that, or we had outgrown that. And so we had to figure out what's next as we were looking at running out of space again. And I remember one of our church members, Randy Berg, telling us about this property out on the bypass highway in the community there that we should go look at. And I remember we got out of the car on top of the hill and looked out, and I just immediately thought, this is the place. This is it. I mean, it was nothing but 17 to 20 acres of field at the time, cornfield. But you could just see this is something that God could take and do some miraculous things.
So the prayer was not to see how many people you could get, but the prayer was how many people can you get to follow Jesus no matter where they go. And so I think those prayers are being answered.
And we've seen that so many times. We've seen so many baptisms over and over, and so many people that are heavily involved in church now that weren't going anywhere. That's been the real blessing. We feel like we're reaching the lost and still doing it today.
And that's our story. And I know there's other stories, and I think those collection of those kinds of stories are the evidence of God moving in His people in redemption.
So it's just been so fun, so exciting to watch what God's done. And I think I knew from the get-go God was going to do something really cool, but I would be exaggerating if I told you that I thought God was going to grow us to a church of several thousand people in small southern and rural Indiana. Just didn't expect that, but He often can do and does do immeasurably more than we can ever ask or imagine.
First time we went to the Jasper campus knowing that that's where we were going to attend was January of 2011.
So when we went to that first time in 2011, I guess you could say we were church shopping, for a church home. Daryl met us at the front door that day, and we went a couple times, but we only had one child at that time, new parents, and it was a long drive, and didn't think we could make it that far with the kids, so decided to find a church close to home.
We felt led that Lagodi needed a little more of a youth involvement outside of what was just the normal for Lagodi youth. So we approached the situation as like, hey, if we could just do something like what you guys do down here for our youth, that'd be great. And we were looking at a building. Richard and us met outside these doors right here, sat in a lawn chair one morning and prayed over the building and just prayed that God would, if it was His will, that something would come about. And then finally when we approached Daryl and the elders with it, they were like, well, how about we just do our first satellite church there? And then the process began of us building our office over there and the church building here, and that was all going on at one time. So it was a journey. It was something I never saw myself doing.
Being here for those first services was just absolutely amazing, and just seeing the number of people coming through the doors and seeing this campus just kind of being built from the foundation up.
We opened that door and that parking lot just kept filling up and the people coming in, and it was just like the joy of those people coming through those doors for a new church.
But overall it was just amazing to be able to be a part of it and to see it come together and to see just the way God was moving in putting things together there.
It just instantly, I think, felt like home.
And I just, remember coming to Redemption and still just at that point in my life thinking that, everything that I needed to do under my own strength, my own power. And I've just really fully come to understand that, I can trust Him in everything. And true peace and strength comes from that, not from my own ability.
I think the important thing is that even though we're a satellite campus, we're one church with multiple locations, right? But we, every single week, feel God speaking, through the service, and most importantly, what happens after the church scatters.
We've been able to join not only men's groups and women's groups, but we have a small group from our community group. We went through Rooted together, so it gave us a lot of opportunities for connection.
In this stage of our life, we've learned the hard way that things can go awry if you don't give God control of your life. And so when we gave God control, He transformed our life, and redemption was a really important part of that process.
I've really picked up a lot of faith in church and in people by the number of people that have came in and really partnered with us on taking care of our kids. Is just the goodness of people to help partner to make your family who they are.
And I think in 25 years, our communities are, I don't think we can even explain what it's going to look like, because God is moving and this younger generation is on fire, and I think they're going to lead well and do big things for Lagodi, Jasper, and Tell City.
Grace is meant to do a work in you and do a work through you. While the grace of Christ forgives us, the work of following Jesus, known as sanctification, is an ongoing process.
Basically, everything else pales in comparison to just the fact that God loves me. If the Lord is God, go all in.